What really obvious thing have you only just realized? That the phrase mint condition means like new because it's the condition coins leave the mint in. Wow, I always thought it meant mint condition because mint makes you feel fresh. That when I was a kid and my dad would take me to the video store on Friday nights and he would go into the back room where only adults were allowed, that he was looking at P. I must have been around 11-12 years old when I realized that in order of appearance during the end credits of a movie doesn't list the actors/actresses by who is the most good looking. I learned a couple years ago that it's not the mayor of bad news, it's actually the bearer of bad news. I'm 25. Cilantro and coriander are the same plant. I only just today realized that the walk the plank on a boat is not a special edition pirates added to their ships as a means of public execution that looked like a little wooden diving board. It is, in fact, the very same plank as the gangplank you'd normally use to get on and off of the ship. It is not the presence of the plank that is threatening, but the absence of dock. The first time I visited the USA I was on my own and in NY and going to all the museums. I kept seeing signs that said no strollers and thought, because we call strollers prams in the UK, that you guys are super strict about the proper amount of attention required to visit a museum. I actually pretended to show more interest than I had in order not to be thugged off as some deadbeat out for a casual stroll. It wasn't until about day 3 that I saw the no strollers sign that included a graphic for idiots. That calling someone simple is just a nice way of calling someone stupid. Wife informed me of this after 28 years of my grandma calling me simple. Simple could also mean uncomplicated or not conniving, but maybe I'm just naive. I realized at the age of 26 that narwhals are real because they were on an Octonauts episode. I walked into the room and was like, I thought they only do real animals on this show. Then the kid's dad said, you're joking, right? I kept seeing the same Chinese characters on restaurant signs and I always wanted to know what it meant. A week ago I found out, they mean restaurant. That you have to add a can of water to Campbell's soup. Apparently I've been drinking straight condensed soup. Don't let people lie to you. Eat it straight from the can. I used to always pour water into our coffee maker 1 glass at a time. It was such a pain in the butt, especially to fill the reservoir to the number of cups I wanted, until I realized I could just fill the carafe with water, which has the exact same measurements, and pour the water in that way. I recently realized I was allergic to carrots. I just thought they made everyone's mouth numb, you know, just like almonds. I also learned recently that I have an almond allergy. Same here. Thought that raw hazelnuts don't taste good because they give this weird tingle in your mouth. Found out I had a nut allergy when it suddenly turned from tingle to anaphylaxis and I ended up in hospital for eating nut chocolate. I always thought you can't have your cake and eat it. 2 was a weird saying because why wouldn't I be able to eat my freaking slice of cake? It's my cake. Nobody was telling me that I can't have my cake. Turns out they mean you can't eat the cake while also still retaining it. Once it is eaten, it is gone. An idiom I did not understand until this year. I am 27. The Italian version of this is you can't have a full bottle and a drunk wife or something along those lines. This sounds ridiculous, but I recently found out about the term knee-jerk reaction. My whole life I had been saying it how I heard it, and just figured it was spelled something like knee-jerk reaction, like it was some psychology term. English is not my first language, so I was mind blown when I realized how keys, kiss, ease, his, this, these, etc. differed in sound, pronunciation. I first noticed this when I told my boyfriend I wanted a keys and he looked very confused. Now I try my best to pronounce them properly. Imagine if you'd made that mistake when ordering peas. My whole life I thought pay-per-view was actually pay-per-view because I had only ever heard people say it, and only recently saw it written out. My boyfriend did not know that his electric toothbrush has a timer on it that goes off at 1 minute and 2 minutes. He actually returned it and got a new one thinking it was broken, since the timer is just a brief sort of pause reduction in the vibration. He would be like, WTF, I literally just charged this freaking thing thinking that the battery was already dying. One day, and I can't remember exactly what the conversation was, I brought up how I liked that my toothbrush let me know when I had brushed long enough. And it was like a light bulb went off in his head and suddenly he put it together that was what his toothbrush was doing all along. That big ship's wheel I got to turn as a kid was not actually controlling the cruise ship. I realized that to be in one's birthday suit it means to be without clothes. I thought for the longest time it was a specific set of clothes you would wear on your birthday each year. I found out when I asked, what happens when you don't fit in your birthday suit anymore? Stretch marks happen. For the longest time, I always thought prima donna was prima donna. Me, too. My mother would call me that and I thought she meant I was going to be a W. I was 28 before I realized the meaning to the why is 6 afraid of 7 joke. I always just thought it was dumb. 7, 8, 9, like you're just counting. The electric bill wasn't paid until later in my life. I didn't realize time flies like an arrow. Fruit flies like a banana wasn't absurdist humor until college. Principal building from Saved by the Bell is named Belding. 2 buildings in one building and one of them's building. Best line of the show according to younger me. The reason the cord hook on the vacuum spins is so you can take the whole cord off at once instead of unraveling it one loop at a time, like I have been my whole life. And if you wind it up as a figure 8 between the 2 hooks, when you turn the hook down and take off the whole cord, it won't get tangled up as you vacuum. That parents have children write letters to Santa so they can figure out what to buy them for Christmas. I can't believe how I never put that together after 32 years on this earth. I just thought it was fun little tradition. In Sweden we put those letters in the postbox with mail headed to the North Pole. My bedroom door was broke and I finally got around to fixing it. Thought the knob was broke cause it was pushed in towards the door, so I pulled it out and realized that was how you locked the door. It called Men's Warehouse and not Men's Warehouse. It's been a couple years since I realized this and I just think that's a clever name. What the frick, I just looked it up and I still don't believe you. The villain in Halloween is not played by Michael Myers. Get out of my swamp or I am gonna murder ya. This little piggy didn't go to the market to do any shopping. For a long time I thought to bust a nut meant that you were going to kick a guy in the balls or beat him up. So anytime I was getting worked up or angry talking about some guy I would say I'm going to bust his freaking nut, not knowing the real meaning. Nobody ever said anything but it was always followed by my friends laughing, so I assumed it was because I was being dramatic. Years go by and my co-worker is telling me about some rude person he met and I said you should definitely bust that guy's nut. To which he paused and said, do you even know what that means? Suffice it to say I was extremely embarrassed and horrified when he explained it to me. Similarly, I have a friend who didn't know what friends with benefits meant. She thought it meant like a friend from work who is literally beneficial to your work. Super embarrassing, but in college I would order rum and cokes because I heard everyone else ordering the same. Turns out I misheard everyone and found out it was just rum and coke. A rum and coke does sound like a great drink though. That they put measurement stickers next to gas station doors so if a robber is running out of the store you can get a better estimate of their height. I always thought they were just there for something fun to do on road trip stops. More than that, they're not actually accurate if you stand against them and measure that way. They're supposed to be placed so the camera will show the correct height of the person, compensating for the angle of the camera. When teenagers said we're going to TP a house, I always thought it was TP and it never made sense to me since they just covered a house with toilet paper. I recently realized that TP was the initials for toilet paper. I'm 27. Not just now, but I think it applies. I'm currently in my mid-30s. I didn't realize until I was about 28 years old that my mom's name was Betty and her sister's name was Wilma. Betty and Wilma, from the Flintstones. And yes, they were definitely named after the cartoon. I asked. Flash forward 2 years later, my aunt Wilma informed me that they were fraternal twins. Again, another thing for 30 years I had not known. This girl I know has a dog named Deirdre. 2 years into knowing her and being around Deirdre, I was having a conversation with her sister-in-law and I said I love the name Deirdre. How did she come up with that? Her sister-in-law responds, Deirdre, and I said yay, it's a neat name. She started laughing and said no, D-O-G, the way you spell dog. I'm still mind blown about this. We got a chocolate Labrador quite a few years ago. My dad has been known to name animals after what species they are. This time around, my mom wouldn't let him name the dog, so he named her Kitty. He also named his horse No Name. This is why we don't let him name animals anymore. When I was little we had an Australian shepherd named Sydney. I didn't understand why her name was Sydney until 18 years later. I named my American Eskimo Juno. Saw a place labeled as public house when I moved nearby recently. It was at that moment I realized, oh, that's why they call them pubs. It's short for public house. In Russian phrase public house means a W house, not a pub. I wonder. Pufferfish suck in water not air. Not me, but my sister asked me about 2.5 months ago when we were watching John Wick 3 during the desert scene. She asked me if they were real and I asked if what were real and she said sand lands and I busted out laughing so goddamn hard and said, you mean deserts? Yes, they're real. Thinking about it right now got me laughing. I think we should start a petition to change the word to sandlands though. It's pretty good. Up until last year I thought Nat Geo was a person. I then realized it was short for National Geographic. Nathaniel Giotopoulos actually was a founder of the channel, but it's only a coincidence. I thought astigmatism was astigmatism, so I thought you could have two stigmatisms. And I confused stigmatism with both stigma and stigmata. Today my friend realized pipe cleaners were originally for cleaning pipes, after I suggested using one to clean a metal straw because it's similar to a pipe. Oh, I had that one about 7 years ago when my stoner butt was trying to clean out a glass pipe. Man, this is so stupid. Someone should invent some sort of freaking pipe cleaner. Oh. I learned that allspice is actually one spice and not a blend of spices containing cinnamon and nutmeg. I also just learned that from your comment. Personal injury lawyer commercials play more frequently during daytime TV because their clientele is injured, stuck at home, and watching daytime TV. The houses in Bikini Bottom are car mufflers. What the frick? That people who always seem to know what direction it is, north, south, east, west, aren't somehow magical magnets but are rather just noticing where the goddamn sun is in the sky. Why did no one tell me? The sun is a huge indicator, but I know plenty of people who keep track of direction without the sun without even thinking about it. I am not one of them. You have been visited by the hamster of joy. Comment I like chicken to live a happy and full of joy like the joy hamster life. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.